So the program of today, we're going to talk about what are the winemaking tools available to you to achieve wine balance, focusing on polysaccharides and tannins. Then we'll talk a little bit about what can we use to improve longevity. We are going to spend some time on how to set up bench trial, because that's very important. Everything we're going to talk about, you can actually taste it, and we highly recommend you to taste it in your wine. Again, because we're talking pre-bottling, you want to make sure of the addition you're making. So setting up bench trial is the best way to decide, as you can taste in the final wine and you really can see the impact in your wine. So we're going to talk about bench trial and take some concrete examples, such as what to do for overripe characters, or what to do for underripe characters, a lighter wine, a wine that lack a little bit of balance. We'll talk about all this. Okay, so before diving in the winemaking tools, I want to talk a little bit about wine balance. Wine mouthfeel component and balance. Balance is very subjective. We all have different tastes, we all like different things, and we are okay with this. But there is some common rules when we're talking about wine that everybody will like. And this is the balance between phenolic compounds, sweetness, viscosity, and acidity. These three big components are the building blocks of the balance of the wine, and they can interact together to make a wine likable or not. Okay, so the alcohol, then you have some textural component. The alcohol compounds, they participate to mouthfeel and sweetness, but when it starts to be too much, alcohol can actually make the wine unbalanced due to burn sensation or hotness. It makes the tannins, or all the phenolic compounds, rough and bitter sensation, and we also lose aromatic freshness when we feel too much alcohol. So it's gonna pulling this sweetness, viscosity point here and unbalancing the other components. Mannoprotein polysaccharides, they are also participate to the sweetness, viscosity corner. When you have a good amount, they help you having roundness, volume, weight, body. They balance phenolic compounds, they balance acidity. If you have too much, you make the wine heavy, too viscous, and flabby. Okay. Then the acidity. Acidity is something we can adjust, but more or less, you know, because it's pretty hard to adjust, and we are looking also at analytic. But a high acidity in a positive way will give you brightness, freshness, but in a negative way, if it's too much acid, you are going to have a wine that is tart, aggressive, and rough. It makes the phenolic compounds feel more aggressive. On the other hand, a wine that has a low acidity feels flabby. It makes the sweetness component too present. Okay. Phenolic compounds, they are a very big part of the mouthfeel. They participate to structure, length, and body. They really give you the backbone of the wine. And but if it's too much, or if these phenolic compounds are not the right one, or they are not polymerized enough, you can end up with astringent wine, bitter wine, dry wine, and also aggressive wine. There is ways to balance them. You can play with sweetness or acidity, but you can also just play with phenolic compounds themselves and make them more balanced, or make more polymerized. Okay, so these are the base of the mouthfeel component. We are going to talk more about the phenolic compounds and then the polysaccharides, so sweetness, viscosity side, as acidity is really about adding acid or not. Okay. So let's talk more about polysaccharides. The polysaccharides in wines are actually in very large concentration. We can find them from 100 to 600 milligram per liter in wines. They are polymers of sugars. And there is many analogical roles in of the polysaccharides. They are protective colloids, so they participate to color stabilization, tartrate stabilization, protein stabilization. They reduce astringency, dryness, hotness perception. So that's really the triangle we saw before, where it's balancing basically too much tannins or unbalanced tannins, and it also help reducing the acidity and the aggressivity perception. It does increase volume, viscosity, and sweetness sensation. There is many sources of polysaccharide in wine. The first one, which is the main polysaccharide present in wine, comes from grapes, and they are your pectins. So basically, the berries are full of pectins in the skin and also in the pulp. And some of this pectin needs to be degraded to make the wine, to clarify the wine and filter the wine, but not all of it. So some pectin, smaller piece of pectin are actually very interesting for the mouthfeel and stabilization impact in the wine. So we highly recommend to use enzymes on grapes, so extraction enzyme, to help you extract more of these polysaccharides that you have naturally from your grapes. The second source of polysaccharide in wine is from mannoprotein. And the main source of mannoprotein in wine is yeast. So yeast cell walls, when they autolysis, they release basically their mannoprotein or their cell walls content, and then in the cell walls there is mannoprotein. There is many type of mannoprotein, but they are all present there. Then can be a polysaccharide coming from Arabic gum. So this is an additive in wine, which is not only in wine, it's one of the most common additive in the food industry, which is Arabic gum. We can find polysaccharide in wood, so any wine that is aged in barrel will have polysaccharide extracted from the wood, but also if you use staves or chips or granular, you can get very quickly some sweetness, volume, and weight sensation that is actually due to polysaccharides. The last family of polysaccharide we find in wine is actually the glucans. So these one are mostly present when you have botrytis, and they are not wanted. They make the wine very hard to filter. So when you do have botrytis or rot and you end up with glucans in the wine, you need to use beta-glucanase enzyme to cut these glucans and make your wine more filtrable. Okay, so a little focus on the mannoprotein in winemaking, because it's really what we can do at this step of the winemaking when we're talking pre-bottling. We can't really add any more pectin or grape polysaccharides. We can play with oak, but it's a little bit too late if we're talking about just pre-bottling, unless you're thinking about granular that takes only a few days, I would say days and week of contact. So that's something that can be very interesting that we have too. But otherwise, the mannoprotein are the main polysaccharide we'll talk about. It is so 35% of the total polysaccharide in wine, and half of it comes from the cell walls of Saccharomyces cerevisiae. As you can see here in the graph, this is a graph of the cell wall and the cell membrane. The mannoprotein in the big green circle here. There is mannoprotein everywhere in cell walls. The yeast has to be dead and precipitate, and then with the autolysis, that's when this mannoprotein gets released into the wine. There is a lot of impact or effect or role, I would say, of yeast mannoprotein that has been studied since a very long time. The first observation happened when you age your wine on lees, basically. And what happened there, you realize that usually you have a more stable wine overall. So mannoprotein helps with preventing protein haze. They inhibit crystallization of tartaric salt. They improve foam stabilization in sparkling wine. That's what we see when we age for a longer time, sparkling wine on lees. They also act as an aromatic support, so they help with aromatic persistence. And then they stabilize phenolic compounds, which means they are actually limiting the aggregation of anthocyanin to help color stability, and they interact directly with some tannins, reducing the bitterness and astringency perception. They increase overall the roundness, volume, creaminess, and sweetness of the wine. So it is a very good tool to balance a wine. If you want more body, more weight, if you want just to fine-tune some bitterness or astringency, if you have too much tannins, it is a great tool. And also in sparkling wine, it is a great tool to make your wine bigger with a better foaming capacity. There is a high diversity of yeast Mannoprotein. There is many different yeasts. So as you can imagine, all the cell walls of this yeast are different composition, and depending how they ferment, for example, or how they are cultured, depending the temperature, the nutrients and the oxidation we put them through, they will produce different type of cell walls, and so different type of Mannoprotein. This said, I just wanted to show you a little table here where we are showing the different role of Mannoprotein and the differences. Two different Mannoprotein, we are looking at the gelatin index, which is representing astringency in the wine. And you can see that both Mannoprotein, which is the ADY1 and ADY2, are reducing the gelatin index, so reducing the astringency perception. But the number 2 is way more efficient in this role than the Mannoprotein number 1. PVPP index, which is representing the color stability. Same here. The 2 Mannoprotein improved the PVPP index, so they make the color more stable, but the Mannoprotein number 2 makes way more impact than Mannoprotein number 1. Ethanol index is the sensation of sweetness. That's increasing a lot when we are using Mannoprotein, but again, there is more impact of the Mannoprotein number 2 than the Mannoprotein number 1. So this is part of all the study, we have been looking at when we developed our Mannoprotein product, trying to get the most efficient Mannoprotein. So today we are talking about mouthfeel and balancing the wine. So I'm going to show you the Mannoprotein we have for this impact, which is called MannoSense. MannoSense is a pure solution of a yeast Mannoprotein that is extremely rich in this peptide that is called HSP12. This peptide has been found to be responsible of giving sweetness to the wine. In fact, there is a huge study that has been done by Alex Marshall that isolates these specific peptides for being responsible of sweetness and volume and weight in the wines. So our MannoSense is rich in these peptides. The enological effect of MannoSense, it will improve tartaric stabilization, but mostly we focus on mouthfeel perception. So you increase a lot the roundness and the sweetness, you reduce bitterness and astringency, and you increase aromatic persistence through time. You can see here an example of a white wine and a red wine. So this is results of tasting after 100 milliliter per hectoliter of MannoSense added before bottling. And white or red, you can see pretty much the same feeling where we increase aromatic persistence, we increase a lot the volume in the palate, the sucrosity, also the freshness, the balance of the wine, and we decrease in a considerable way the bitterness. So great tool to use to balance your wine, particularly when we're talking about this vintage 2022 that has unstable or unbalanced tannins and lack a little bit of body and weight. The application, you can add it 2 days pre-final filtration, and the dosage is usually between 50 and 100 ml per hectoliter. This is something we're going to talk about more later, but we give samples to this product for you to do bench trial and make sure about the dosage and the impact of the product before you go ahead and add it to your wine. So it is great for wines with green characters, because giving some volume and sucrosity really ripen the fruit and makes the people feel more ripe and so less green. It's great for wines that lack of body, weight, or roundness, that has some bitter and astringent finish, or also when we're talking about uneven and uneven ripening. Then we can talk about the next polysaccharide that is present in wine, which is Arabic gum. So we have a product called Excel Gum, which is a pure Arabic gum in a dry form, so you don't add water or sulfur to your wine at this stage. I want to tell you a little bit more about Arabic gum and the effect in wine. There is this study from Benoit Faury in 17 that really tried to understand what was the interaction between these polysaccharides, so Arabic gum, pectin, and glucose, and tannin. So why do we feel sweetness, less astringent, and less bitter? And it's pretty much the conclusion of this is that there is a direct association, a direct coating of the Arabic gum, or in this case, glucose and pectin as well, with the tannins, leaving the salivary protein by themselves, so you don't have the dryness sensation. So instead, your tannin don't work anymore or don't react anymore directly with your salivary protein, making your mouth dry, but they do interact with the polysaccharide, Arabic gum, pectin, and glucose, which leave your protein, salivary protein alone. Okay, and when we look at these three compounds, so we all know what sugar can do. Pectin, maybe you don't, but it's the same type of effect. Arabic gum does the same type of effect, but it has a way stronger link with the tannins than pectin and glucose. So it is really the strongest, the polysaccharide that has the strongest affinity with tannins and requires a less concentration to have the same effect. Okay, so there is two different types of Arabic gum with different oenological roles. You have the Arabic gum coming from Acacia verec, which is acting as a protective colloid, so stabilizing effect. And then you have the Arabic gum coming from Acacia seyal, which is actually our Excel gum that has a coating power, so a mouthfeel impact. Okay. You also increase sweetness with this Arabic gum. So knowing these two different polysaccharides, the yeast mannoprotein and the Arabic gum, they seem to be similar. They are, but they are very different as well. So we also developed another product that is called Sublicens, that is a blend of the yeast mannoprotein rich in HSP12 and Arabic gum from Acacia seyal. So this role is really to give you sweetness, roundness, reduce astringency and bitterness, reduce this interaction with your salivary protein while leaving the wine lighter than if it was only mannoprotein. Okay, so we can improve tartaric stabilization, sweetness perception, reduce bitterness and astringency perception, and increase aromatic persistency. Same than the other product, you can add it 2 days pre-final filtration, 80 to 150 milliliter per hectoliter at the dosage. It is great for unripe or green characters, a wine that is a little bit light or lack of body, and a wine that has a dry, bitter, or astringent finish. As you can see in this tasting, we have a red wine and a white wine. And basically with the Sublicens, which is the blue curve, you can increase a lot the smoothness, the overall appreciation, the volume, the length, but also, in fact, in the red wine, we increase the tannic structure. Not in a negative way. The wine is just bigger, so we feel there is more tannins. There is not more tannins, but they are just more balanced. Okay, so very interesting tool to really balance. It acts almost like a glue in the wine. So when you have a wine that you feel is very spiky and goes in every direction, the Sublicens is very great for this. It's just gonna take all these components and put them together, glue them together, and harmonize the wine overall giving you more length, more volume, more balance, and just an overall appreciation that is higher. So now I want to talk a little bit about the tannins. This was the corner of polysaccharide, sweetness, viscosity, where you really can play with Mannoprotein, you can play with oak, you can play with Arabic gum. You have different tools, basically. Now, let's talk about the phenolic compounds part, because tannins are really essential in wine, in white, rosé, and reds. Of course, more in reds than the others, but they are still present in the other two. They can come from different area in winemaking or different source. So I'm going to talk about these different source because they don't have the same effect. Okay, so the tannin in wine, you have the hydrolyzable tannins that are actually galloelagic, so oak chestnut tannin that act very good in redox potentials, buffering the redox potential, antioxidant. They give you a pretty strong mouthfeel. They can be a little bit aggressive at first, but they need some time to polymerize and get long. You probably notice this when you put your wine in a barrel at the beginning. The tannins are pretty dry and aggressive, and then they smooth because they polymerize, but also because you extract some polysaccharide from the wood. And then they react with sulfur molecules. So they are great tools if your wine is a little bit reduced. Then you have gallic tannins that can be acting as antioxidant, antioxidazic, and protein removal. These are usually used on juice or on grapes. And then you have the condensed tannins, so the pro-anthocyanidinic tannins that come from skin and seeds of the grapes. So in the seeds, you have like just very small units. In the skin, you have longer units. They are just more polymerized, so they are softer, less aggressive, and less reactive with protein. And then you have another category that comes from Quebracho or Mimosa that are very similar to our pro-anthocyanidinic tannins, but they are not from grapes. So these condensed tannins are usually great for polymerization, color stabilization. They participate a lot to the mouthfeel. They are antioxidazic and they help protein removal when we're talking about the short units. So understanding this, you can see that there is many different application of tannins. It can be for buffering redox potential, antioxidants, protein removal, helping just the mouthfeel, the color stabilization, or also helping the aromas. Today, we are not talking about the full winemaking process. We really focus on pre-bottling. So I just want to show you the tools we have, and then we'll go more in detail at La Matabier for pre-bottling. So we have one grape tannin, so pro-anthocyanidinic tannin, Vinitan Advance. This is a tannin that's really focused on purity. It's really elegant tannin that will give you structure, will give you participate to color stabilization. It is a great tannin to improve aging potential, and it does boost the freshness and lift the fruit on the aromas. It's a tannin that comes from grape. So it's basically an obvious choice when you do have grapes that are a little bit lower in tannin content than usual, you know, or just grape varieties such as Pinot Noir that can have a little bit less skin tannins. Depending what you did in extraction, Vinitan Advance has really his place in the winemaking. Then we have some complex tannins that are association of tannins and polysaccharides. So here we're talking about soft tannin finition. And the focus of this tannin is softness. It's going to give you volume, it's going to give you structure, and it's going to stabilize your wine. It is a kind of a multitask tannin because it's really adding both together. You add tannin, you add softness, so you add this glue between these two corners of the triangle, making the wine really harmonious. And then we have oak tannins, where here we're talking really precision. So they are used for very specific goals. We have 4 of them, and they are different depending on their toast level. So they are all French oak, and the origin, tannescence origin, is very low toast. The tannescence volume is also very low toast, and we have tannescence expression and tannescence forte with high toast. They are acting as antioxidant. They are great to regulate your redox potential, so great for aging potential. They give you structure. They can give you really, it depends what you want, but you can have really linear and some long finish, or you can have some that gives you volume because the way we extract them from the oak. So the Vinitan Advance is the tannin that is 100% from grapes, will improve your polymerization. It has a high polymerization potential, which means it's gonna polymerize pretty fast and well with your own tannins, helping your stabilization of your own phenolic compounds, but also helping your aging potential. Okay, when you look at this graph here, we are looking at the index, so the salivary protein index, which means how dry is the wine. So basically how, when you put your wine in your mouth, how much protein are reacting with the tannin, so how dry you feel. The lower is this index and the less astringent and less dry is the wine. And as you can see, when we add Vinitan Advance, we're actually adding tannins, but we're reducing this index, making the wine just more balanced. So instead of having wine that feel astringent, because sometimes it's what happens, you have just a lack of the mid-palate, so you have a good beginning, lack of the mid-palate, and then you feel astringency. Sometimes adding tannins that fill this mid-palate is gonna actually make the wine just longer, and the astringency becomes less in terms of perception because the wine is balanced. I hope it makes sense, but if it doesn't, please write me in the chat or in the question. So this is a great tannin to add anytime during aging or pre-bottling. You can add 5 to 15 grams per hectoliters, and its application. So if you have a light wine that has a bitter or astringent finish, big wine that has a bitter and astringent finish, overripe aromas that need some refresh, because this tannin will really help boosting the freshness. A heavy wine that has a high pH, high alcohol, feels overripe, Vinitan Advance is the way to go. A light wine that is balanced but needs more complexity, or a big wine that is balanced and needs more complexity. So a lot of situation, Vinitan Advance is a good candidate to try to balance the wine. Then soft tan finition that we just talked about. So it is a complex tannin that really is multitasking. It can decrease astringency perception. So we did the same test with the salivary protein, and we know it decreases astringency perception as not as good as Vinitan Advance, but it does it too. Then it's a tannin that comes from oak. So there is some oak aromas here that, you know, a lot are like almond and toasted oak, and some vanilla aromas too, which really helps you increasing the perception of ripeness to the wine. So you reduce the perception of green character by adding aromas that are more ripe. I hope it makes sense. And it's a tannin that is also great to mask some faults, such as reducing the perception of volatile phenol, which is a bread taint. So here you can see we did a study, a pretty big study, in fact, where there is many wines from different variety, different countries, different areas. And we added the soft NFT in it, and then we look at the perception threshold of volatile phenol. So when we look at the perception threshold, the highest is the perception threshold and the less you feel it, because it means that you need more concentration of the molecule to feel it. Okay, so higher perception threshold means lower perception overall of the molecule. And basically every time we add the soft NFT in the wine, we are hiring the perception threshold, which means when you add soft NFT to your wine, you reduce the sensation of volatile phenol. So you don't change the concentration, you just feel it less because you add complexity to the wine. So the wine is more complex, and the person that smell and taste the wine doesn't notice the volatile phenol. Then when we talk about the oak tannins, I told you there is 4 of them, and they vary depending the heat we use during the process, so the toast level. The tannin essence volume is a tannin that is here really to boost the fresh fruit. It has a very low impact in terms of aromatic, very low heat, and it's actually more a technological tannin that we use to buffer redox potential. Tannin essence origin and tannin essence expression are 2 tannins that are very aromatic. They are here to give you a sensation of a barrel-aged wine. So tannin essence origin would be a light toast barrel. Tannin essence expression would be a medium toast barrel, French oak. If you take like a very typical example of a barrel, that's it. That's what it will give you. It increases sweetness, roundness, but also length and structure. Tannin essence forte is a high toast level tannin, and so it really brings freshness and mask overripe aromas. It gives you a little bit of spice and a little bit of eucalyptus notes sometimes, so it boosts the freshness. It gives you tension, which is a great tool on high pH wine. So we talked about wine longevity. A little bit with the Vinitan Advance, which makes sense. It's a grape tannin, so of course, if you have a wine that doesn't have a lot of grape tannin, use the Vinitan Advance without even looking at, you know, without waiting pre-bottling. You can add it post-pressing. Use 5 grams per hectoliter. It's gonna really help condensing your tannins and protecting your wine and giving a little bit of resistance for aging. Then there is another tool, which is oak tannins. So here we are looking at the oxygen consumption rate of different tannins. And as you can see, the one that consumes the oxygen the fastest is the oak. Okay, so oak tannins are great to scavenge oxygen radical and protect your wine from oxidation, which is improving wine longevity. Then we did this trial internally, and we found the same result. So our oak tannins show better oxygen consumption rate than our skin tannin or garlic tannin. So we know that we can recommend oak tannins for this application. Then you remember what I just told you about our 4 oak tannins. The one we recommend to increase wine longevity is gonna be the tannin that has a less impact in terms of aromatic and structure. So we're gonna recommend to use tannin essence volume, which is a lower toast oak tannin that has a great oxygen consumption rate. So it's a great antioxidant protection for your wine. It's gonna build up wine resistance to oxidation and also buffer your redox potential, making your wine less sensitive to aging, less risky to fall into oxidation or reduction. You really buffer this redox potential with tannin essence volume. The idea or optimal concept is really to put like 0.5 to 1 gram per hectoliters every time you do a transfer. Every time you move the wine, you add it. White, rosé, you got 0.5, and red, you got 1. Then if you want to build wine phenolic structure, that's where we are talking about Vinitan Advance, 1 to 5 grams per hectoliters. It really will help you increase wine longevity, which these 2 tools, we did a lot of tasting on the 2022. These 2 tannins are almost obvious on the 2022. It really help making the wine more stable through aging and just more uniform overall. Then some more concrete question here. How that I got was how to manage green character and green tannins. So there is 2 things here. One is to be working on the mouthfeel sensation. So we want to soften the mouthfeel, add length, volume, and roundness. In this case, we go on polysaccharides. Again, if you remember this triangle, already we have aromas and feelings of unripe. So we feel the acidity is stronger. We have rough tannins. So the way to balance this is to really play on the last corner of with Sublicens, Mannoproteins, and Excel gum. Then when we are talking about the aromas, to ripen the aromas and make people perceive the wine less green and just rounder, we can work with Tannessence Origin, which is our oak tannins. I put you here the composition of the analytical composition of this tannin that show a lot of sweet aromas. So you increase a lot the coconut, vanilla, toasted almond, nougat. Not sure if you know what I mean, but it's this little picture here. That is gonna help you make the wine more in a pastry mode. And so instead of like the consumer, instead of seeing the wine as green, is gonna see it as a lime pie, for example. So you really add complexity and add a complexity that is a different category of very ripe and sweet aromas to balance these green aromas. The other tannin that is a good candidate for this example would be the soft NFT. For the same reason, you are adding some almond, vanilla characters. Okay, I hope it makes sense. So I want to, this is a pretty big slide, but it's, I think, probably the most useful for you. These are all the products I just talked about and different scenario, and basically what are the products I would recommend to try. So if we have green character, I would go with Tannessence Origin or soft NFT, as we just talked about. If you have rough tannin, same, these two tannins plus Excel gum, Sublicens, or Mannoproteins. If you are in a light wine, you just need structure, weight, body, but you want to make sure you don't get too aggressive. We go on Tannessence volume or Tannessence expression, soft NFT, and then we'll work with Sublicens and Mannoproteins. Excel gum is more when you have rough tannins. Bitter of astringency. If you have big wine or a light wine, I would recommend different things. But yeah, basically, I'm gonna leave this table a little bit here, and I will be happy to send it to you. So feel free to email me after the presentation or to ask me questions, and I will be happy to help you. I'm just going to jump right in the bench trial setup to actually finish our presentation here. So everything we talked about and this big table here is to give you basically idea of what to try in your wine. We never know which one is going to work for your wine. Even when we taste, and we taste every day a sample of wine, and we have every day customers that ask us what to do. And so I always tell them I need to taste. So the idea is make a bench trial on your own, or send us your samples. We will make the bench trial for you, and then we send it to you, telling you try this and this and this. Okay, but so if you want to make your own bench trial, you can make a solution of 1, 2, or 2% in 13% alcohol. That's if we give you the powder. And you have the powder product, but otherwise ask us and we make the solution for you. We give you in these little kits, which are the droppers. Calculation of the ad will be the dosage that you want, so in percentage. So if you want, 10, 20% dosage in your wine times the volume of your wine in milliliters. So usually we work in 750 bottle, or you can work in 50 mils glasses, and you divide this by 1% if it's a 1% solution, or by 2% if it's a 2% solution. Okay, usually our dosage range for the tannins are from 5 to 15 grams per hectoliters. The Mannoprotein, the Arabic gum, so the Mannoproteins, the Sublicens, and the Excel gum we made the solution in 10%. So because the dosage range is 50 to 150. Okay, so you make the ad, you mix the sample, don't forget to have a control and mix the control too. So you make the same process everywhere, and then you can taste pretty much a minute after you do the ad. So it's completely immediate. Once the tannin is in it, the tannin stays. So or same with the polysaccharides. These products are fully filterable. These products are fully part of the wine once you add them in. So no worries about stability in time. It's integrating in the wine, and no worries about filtering out the product. It will not be. Okay, so when you do have the bottle here, we send you all the indication, but basically if you put 1 drop in 50 milliliter, it gives you a dosage of 1 gram per hectoliter. So we have tools available to help you decide what to do and what to add to your wine. So first, ask us for samples. We will make this sample kit and we will send them to you just by emailing us. It's even better if you we can taste with you. We are used to this. We do it all the time. So feel free to send us your wine sample or schedule a tasting with us if you are in Sonoma, Napa, or Paso area. We will be happy to come at the winery or take your sample, taste with you. And in live, we do all this trial with our tannins, and so we decide together. If you do want more information, you can find all the bench trial setup sheets online in our library. I put the link in the chat. And also in our website, we have a quiz to choose your tannin that you can use and take. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. Please feel